Matilda by Roald Dahl, Chapter 3 The Hat and the Superglue. The following morning, just before the father left for his beastly second-hand car garage, Matilda slipped into the cloakroom and got hold of the hat he wore each day to work. She had to stand on her toes and reach up as high as she could with a walking stick in order to hook the hat off the peg. And even when she only just made it, the hat itself was one of those flat top pork pie jobs with a jay's feather stuck in the headband. Mr. Wormwood was very proud of it. He thought it gave him a rakish, daring look, especially when he wore it at an angle and with his loud checked jacket and his awful green tie. Matilda, holding the hat in one hand and a thin tube of superglue in the other hand, proceeded to squeeze a line of glue very neatly all around the inside rim of the hat. Then she carefully hooked the hat back on the peg with the walking stick. She timed this operation very carefully, applying the glue just as her father was walking up from the breakfast table in the kitchen. Mr. Wormwood didn't even notice anything when he put the hat on. But when he arrived at the garage, he couldn't get it off. Superglue is a very powerful stuff, so powerful that it can take the skin off of your head if you pull it very hard. Mr. Wormwood didn't want to be scalped, so he had to keep the hat on his head for the whole day. Even when putting sawdust in gearboxes and fiddling with the mileage of the cars with his electric drill. In an effort to save face, he adopted a casual attitude, hoping that his staff would think that he actually meant to keep his hat on all day. When he got home that evening, he still couldn't get the hat off. Don't be silly, his wife said. Come here, I'll take it off of you. She gave the hat a sharp yank. Mr. Wormwood let out a really loud yell that rattled the window panes. Ow! He screamed. Don't do that. Let go. You'll take half of the skin off of my forehead. Matilda, nestled in her usual chair, was watching the performance over the rim of her book with some interest. What's the matter, Daddy? She said. Has your head suddenly swollen up so much or something? The father glared at his daughter with deep suspicion, but said nothing. How could he? Mrs. Wormwood said to him, It must be superglue. It couldn't be anything else. That'll teach you to go play around with that nasty stuff like that. I expect you were trying to stick another feather in your hat. I haven't touched the flaming stuff, Mr. Wormwood shouted. He turned and looked again at Matilda, who looked back at him with her large, innocent brown eyes. Mrs. Wormwood said, You should read the label on the tube before you start messing with a dangerous product like that. Always follow the instructions on the label. What in heaven's name are you talking about, you stupid witch? Mr. Wormwood shouted, clutching the brim of his hat to stop anyone from trying to pull it off again. Do you think I'm so stupid I'd glue this thing to my head on purpose? Matilda said, There's a boy down the road who got some super glue on his fingers without knowing it, and then he had put his finger in his nose. Mr. Wormwood jumped. What happened to him? He spluttered. The finger got stuck inside his nose, Matilda said. He had to go around like that for a week. People kept saying to him, Stop picking his nose. And he couldn't do anything about it. He looked so awful. He looked like an awful fool. Serves him right, Mrs. Wormwood said. He shouldn't have put his finger up there in the first place. It's a nasty habit. If all children had superglue put on their fingers, they'd soon stop doing it. Matilda said, Grown-ups do it too, Mom. I saw you do it the other day in the kitchen. You were poking your nose. That's quite enough from you, Miss Wormwood said, turning pink. Mr. Wormwood had to keep his hat on all through supper in front of the television. He looked ridiculous, and he stayed very silent. When he went up to bed, he tried again to get it off, and so did his wife, but it wouldn't budge. How am I going to have a shower? He asked. You'll have to do without it, won't you? Said his wife. And later on, as she watched her skinny little husband skulking around the bedroom in his purple striped pajama with a pork pie hat on his head, she thought how stupid he looked. Hardly the kind of man a wife dreams about. Mr. Wormwood discovered that the worst thing about having a permanent hat on your head was having to sleep in it. It was impossible to lie comfortably on the pillow. Now do stop fussing around, his wife said to him after he had been tossing and turning for about an hour. I expected it would be loose by morning, and then it will slip off right easily. But it was not loose by morning, and it would not slip off easily at all. So Mrs. Wormwood took a pair of scissors and cut the thing right off of his head, bit by bit, first on the top and then the brim, where the inner band had stuck to the hair, all around the sides and the back. She had to chop the hair right off of the skin, so that he finished up with a bald white ring all around his head, like some sort of monk. And in front there was a band stuck directly to his bare skin. There it remained a whole lot of pieces of patches of brown and stuff all around, even after he tried to wash it off. At breakfast, Matilda said to him, You must try to get those bits off of your forehead, Daddy. It looks as though you've gotten some brown insect crawling all over. People might think you have lice. Be quiet, Father snapped. Just keep your nasty mouth shut, will you? All in all, it was the most satisfactory exercise, but it was surely too much to hope that it had taught the father a permanent lesson.